Hi, I'm Bob Charger from Radnor Studio 21 and Character Driven Productions. Here at This'll Do Studios with my good friend and co-host, Emmy and Telly award-winning producer, John Ricciutti.
Bob, thanks very much for the introduction. This year on John Ricciutti Presents for the upcoming season, we have some exciting and intriguing and interesting guests that are coming up. First off, we have Lynn Abraham. Lynn Abraham is a storied Philadelphia jurist. Do you believe in the death penalty?
I think, well, first of all, I think life without parole is certainly an alternative. The only problem with our court system is that life without parole in some situations doesn't necessarily mean life without parole. There are many cases that are now going for, oh, life without parole is cruel. We get rid of the death penalty, then we have life without parole, then we get rid of life without parole, and so there you are. And that's where the movement is definitely going. My position on the death penalty is when a person takes an oath, I'm not in office any longer, when a person takes an oath to follow all the law of the Constitution of Pennsylvania and the U.S. Constitution, if the law is on the books, then I'm going to follow it. One can argue before a court that this law should be struck down for cruel and unusual punishment, or it's wrong, or it's bad, but I can tell you, as long as the courts support it, there'll be prosecutors like me who will enforce that law and ask the jury to make the decision. Remember, the DA doesn't make the decision. The DA doesn't sentence anybody to the ultimate penalty. That's up to the jury. That's why it's such a tough question. We leave it to the jury, the people in the community, to make the decision of whether they think another member of the community, the accused in this case, should live or should pay the ultimate price.
We also have Bobby Rydell. Bobby Rydell, as you know, wrote a book recently about his struggles with alcohol in his career.
The reason I had to have a new liver was because when my first wife passed away, it became very, very heavy, and we were married for 36 years, and she was dealt, you know, a blow that we thought she had it licked at one time. She was clean for 9 years. She had breast cancer. And it came back with a vengeance, and a couple of years after that, she passed away. Now, you know, back then I was what you would call a social drinker. You know, have a cocktail before lunch and maybe something after dinner, a little liqueur, you know, something like that. But when Camille passed away, a big part of my life just left me. And truthfully, my best friend at that time was vodka. And a lot of it. I mean, to the point where I used to hide bottles in my golf bag, the trunk of my car. God forbid, a half a bottle of the vodka was gone in the refrigerator, and I'd have to make a run to the liquor store to get a new one, because God forbid I ran out.
We also have Jerry Blavitt. Jerry Blavitt's written a book, and I know he's a friend of yours from the music industry, the disc jockey industry.
We go to the screening, and they got all the distributors there. I'm sitting in front, and the movie comes on, big screen, and I didn't see it until this time. And it says, introducing Jerry Blavitt. I said, wow. I look at the movie. I said, this movie's not that good. I don't know about this movie. The lights go on, and there's no distributors there. The only guys applauding is the director, the producer, H.G. Peters, okay. And we go back to the Beverly Hill Hotel, and they already gave Nat half deposit. The next movie I'm getting $25,000, so they gave him $12.50, half deposit. I say, I got a problem here. This movie's not going to get a distributor. I go back to Philadelphia. My career on television is over. Over.
In our series, we have Jim Murray, co-founder of Ronald McDonald House and former general manager of the Philadelphia Eagles.
And all at once I hear this voice, and I recognize it. Hey kid, what the hell are you gonna do about this? And I thought, didn't you hear me? So I'm doing the same thing as Jesus 3 times. So I purposely don't turn around. Well, there was a thermometer on the field. And I think Bob Levy, who we talked about, had donated the first AstroTurf field to Penn. And it was 130 degrees. Didn't you hear me? No, and then the second time. So the third time I turn around. And of course I look right at him, and it's Vince Lombardi. I said, What are you going to do about it, kid? Did you hear me? I said, look, you're God. I'm just an altar boy. What are you going to do about it?
Bob, another episode I'm really excited about is an interview we did with Jim Curlin. Jim Curlin is a former Marine who was in an intense battle in Vietnam. It was in a village called Ban Lan 2, and the effects of that battle have caused him to have a lifelong struggle with post-combat stress disorder.
We made the landing. To our surprise, we were in about 1,000 foot by huge rice paddy and kind of a graveyard. And we had to cross that rice paddy, and it was raining. It was a dark day. The rice paddy had about 2 foot of water in it, so it was like running in molasses. When we got out of the helicopter, you sank. But the rounds from the reinforced bunkers were coming at us from the village. We had to cross that rice paddy. And all I kept thinking was, I just hope I don't get hit in the head.
We also have Joe Canuso, who's co-produced a play with Ray Didinger. And in that play is a story of Ray Didinger's life with Tommy McDonald as a young boy.
When I've always had this memory of what it was like to be that kind of a fan, and then have a life with Tommy where I wrote about him in the years that I was a sports writer, and then later on became sort of his advocate for the Pro Football Hall of Fame, and then had the opportunity and the tremendous pleasure and honor of being his presenter when he finally went in the Hall of Fame. So it's really a story of life's journey from an 8-year-old, 9-year-old kid carrying his helmet in Hershey to standing on the steps of the Pro Football Hall of Fame and helping to deliver him to the place that he had always wanted to be.
Last but not least, I have a former Gotti hitman who's written a book, who's also in the witness protection program. He reached out to me. I had him as a guest on our show.
And I think if you want to call it the claim to fame, or my introduction into being an associate of the Cambino crime family came when an accident happened. Well, I won't say it's an accident, but anyway, there was a fight. Somebody got killed. I was wanted for it. This guy's father hid me out for 1.5 years. I ended up staying with another club on Eastern Parkway and gravitated towards those guys. I got arrested for my first arrest at the age of 20 years old. It was for 2 murders and possession of a weapon. When most people thought I'd never see daylight again. And I didn't think I'd see daylight again. And we just went through the process of how things go and got an attorney and got me out of the mess.
Who got you the attorney?
My friends ended up getting me an attorney. They ended up meeting somebody from Mulberry Street that knew this good attorney and got him. And of course, I had to pay him a little at a time and run errands and do things to get money to pay him. And that was kind of like my introduction, because then they would take me as I was a stand-up guy. I didn't give anybody up,
Never rat on your friends.
Never rat on my friends. Kept my mouth shut. Stood in jail for about 3 or 4 months before I got bailed out. When I got bailed out, they would bring me to Mulberry Street and they would parade me around and they would introduce me. This is Robert. He's one of our upcoming stars. Just like Goodfellas.
Well, John, that's an impressive lineup of Gotta See TV on Radnor Studio 21.
Bob, there's more. We have Wages of Spin 3 coming out.
In the 80s, John Gotti was wielding his big power in those days. And he went to a concert to see Frank Sinatra with his younger son, Peter, and Joe Watts. Joe Watts was a very powerful, influential guy. John Gotti's senior's really close confidant. And Joe was known to be a tough guy and a killer. He asked Frank to come out, John Sr. Gotti asked Frank Sinatra to come out and say hello to him and his son. And he refused because he was tired. Joe Watts went behind stage and grabbed Frank and slapped him, grabbed him by the throat, and told him, no one says no to John. And then Frank Sinatra, of course, apologized and wasn't too keen on being friendly with Senior at all, Gotti. But Frank Sinatra was well liked in the mob world. And one of the bosses of the DeCavalcanti family in North Jersey, John Riggi, actually turned down the fact that a couple of guys approached about straightening out Frank Sinatra and making him a made member in the family. As an honorary thing, out of respect for what Frank's been through. Frank grew up and was raised in Hoboken, New Jersey. He was involved with different outfits over the years, and he was influenced by the mob to play and keep certain dates, and he got a big push actually from the Fischetti brothers. The one brother ran, I believe it was the Fountain Blue back then, and they would book Frank there and push him in the industry. So it just goes to show you about the power with the mob and this industry.
We also have our Irish feature film.
We do a lot of charitable events throughout the year, and we're very proud of that.
2nd Street in South Philadelphia is probably the only numbered street that I can think of that isn't 2nd or 3rd with the suffix attached to it. It's 2 Street. That's all it's known as to the people down there. You say 2 Street, and they'll...
We also have the Irish centennial of the Irish Rising and the taking of the General Post Office in Dublin. How is that being treated? Is that being treated as a celebration, commemorative? How is it being treated?
Well, it's a good question because it depends on which political lens you put on how you might answer that question. I would call it a celebration of 1916.
And we have the Philadelphia Music Hall of Fame show.
At this point, we're doing this event for George Menny. He was my vice president. I'm the president of the Philadelphia Music Hall of Fame. And this is actually our first event. It's going to be a tribute to him, but it actually will start the new day of the Philadelphia Music Hall of Fame.
John, can you give us a little information about where we can view all these exciting new programs?
Radnor Studio 21 is a mainline public television. It's primarily seen on the main line and Delaware, most of Delaware County, and the western part of Delaware County and Chester County. We're also seen on Philadelphia cable television, but we're soon to be in Ocean City, New Jersey, and Northern Virginia. You can view my shows on Tuesdays and Wednesday nights at 7 o'clock. You can see it on my Facebook page. You can also see it on my website. You can also see me on YouTube.
For screening times, dates, and updates on our shows and feature-length projects, go to Thanks for letting us introduce you to our new exciting season of programs on Radnor Studio 21.
Bob, it was a pleasure to talk to you.
And John, great working with you. For John Ricciutti, I'm Bob Charger.